In this tutorial, I'm going to explain what a mediation analysis is, and then I'm going to show you how we can do that in SPSS. A mediation analysis is to identify the mechanism underlying an observed relationship. For instance, you observe that there's a relationship between IB and DB, and you try to explain why, namely why it happens. The name of the mechanism is called the mediator. Visually, we can put the mediator on the top of the IB and the DB. There's a few letters that we can use to represent all these relationships. First is the letter C, the letter A, letter B, and the letter C apostrophe. On the next page, I'm going to explain what this letter means. In particular, based on Baron Kenny, that there are three sets of regression. The first is the X to Y, and the regression coefficient is C. In general, we expect C should be significant. If the C is not significant, you could still do mediation analysis, but you really need to have some good reasons. I will put some links down below about some articles discussing about whether C should be significant or not. And I'm not going to explain the discussion on this topic because that's beyond the scope of this tutorial. The second regression is the X to M. So we do a simple linear regression, X on the M, and the regression coefficient is A. Finally, you're going to do the regression on the X and N on the Y. The regression coefficient for the M is B, and the regression coefficient for the X is apostrophe. As you can see that the C and the C apostrophe is kind of different because the C is for the simple linear regression, but the C apostrophe is for the multiple linear regression where there's two predictors, namely the X and the M. I'm going to provide an example here to show you the relationship, to show what a mediation analysis is. Notice that this is a hypothetical study, and I just use it as a way to explain the concept of mediation. So for instance, you are running an ice cream store and you find that as temperatures go up, you will find that you can sell more ice cream. So that's the basic observation or the basic effect. Higher temperatures will lead to more ice cream sales. And then you try to explain that why it happens. You hypothesize that, okay, maybe higher temperature make people want to have frozen desserts, making them more likely to buy ice cream from the store. And that's your hypothesis. And so you can put the need for frozen desserts as the mediator. For this regression model, we also need to do three sets of regressions. The first is that we're going to regress the X to Y, namely the temperature on the cells. The second, we're going to regress the X to M, so namely temperature on the NFD. And then finally, we'll do a multiple linear regression. We'll regress the temperature and the NFD on the cells. We're going to see a hypothetical data set. So why is it hypothetical? Because I simulate this data set using R programming. I'll put a link to this R code that you can see. You are interested in, you can see how I generate the data. But if you are not interested, you don't really need to worry too much about that part. I will provide a link to the data set and you can download that data set to do practice. Okay, in particular, in this data set, you will see that there's IB temperature, DB cells, and a mediator need for frozen desserts. How could you measure the NFD if you would like to measure that? You can say, okay, how much do you want to have frozen desserts? 0 is not at all, 6 is very much. Okay, now we're going to move to SPSS. I'm going to show you how we can do the analysis. This is the data in SPSS. As you can see that there's X is the temperature, N is the NFD, Y is the ice cream sales. You can click the analyze and click the regression to the process. I'm assuming that you already have the process set up. If you do not have process, you can click the link down below this video, and which will link you to the process with, it will provide a link to download the process. And also, on that link, on that web page, there's also instruction showing you how you can set up in SPSS. It's very straightforward actually. So, okay, Assuming that you already had a process there, you can click the process, and then, let me reset it. You can click the X to the X variable, and the N to the mediator, and the Y to the Y variable. So basically that's it. And we also need to select the model form. And the confidence interval is 95, so it means that our alpha is, the alpha is 0.05. We do not need to change that. Usually this is okay. We're also going to choose the 5000 bootstrap sampling. We do not really need to change that. And you just can click the OK. So you'll take a few seconds. As you can see that basically the process will done 2 regression. Remember, we had 3 regression. I will go back to do that, one of them. So here, one of the regression is the X to M. That's our A part, yes. And then you also have regression of Y and X and M. So this is multiple regression, the step 3. So the process doesn't produce the first step, namely the base effect, the C. In order to do that, we can also do that, click Analyze Regression. And actually I did that earlier, but let me clean it. So you put the X and the independent variable, and the Y as dependent variable. So here is the first step of linear regression. So click OK. As you can see that the C, the regression coefficient is significant, namely the C. And so this is the A, and this is the B and C apostrophe. Also, in this process output, you can also see that it provides you the confidence interval for the direct effect and indirect effect. In general, you pay attention to the indirect effect. So if the confidence interval, the lower bound and the upper bound, if it doesn't include 0, so both of them are negative or both of them are positive, it means that the mediation analysis work. We can also report this finding. Let's switch to the slide that I prepared. This is the slide I have prepared. As you can see that you can actually put all the regression coefficients into this diagram. By doing so, readers can have a very good understanding what all these relationships are. At the bottom, I also add a statement about to summarize the confidence interval for the indilution effect. So we can say that we conduct a mediation analysis, use process, and we found that the NFD is the significant mediator for the effect of temperature and the ice cream cells, and also report the confidence interval for the indirect effect. So as you can see that the confidence interval doesn't include a 0, it means that the mediation model works as expected. So I think that's it. You find this tutorial useful, please like this video and also consider subscribing to my channel if you have not done so. Thank you.